There we go. All right, volume's back up so I can actually hear that guy over there, and I pointed the right way because I know which way to point. Mitch, Mitch, I got to blame you for this one, Mitch. First off, howdy everyone. Frank KG6NLW here. This is the monthly Q and AMA, and I have a special guest, Quirky James. Hi, James.
Hey everybody. Hey
So,
Frank, thanks for having me on.
oh, of course. Hey, I owe you some screen time.
Don't you owe me
After
some
last,
money too? I think you owe me some money.
yeah. I think
I say
there's
that to
something
everybody,
in there.
just in
We'll
case.
talk afterwards. But I blame Mitch for this one. Mitch, everyone's calling me Frankie now. I blame you,
Frankie.
Mitch. It's all your fault. Yeah, let's hear this guy right here. It's all his fault. So, anyway, welcome, folks. This is a very quirky episode. This is going to be our Q and AMA. So, you guys out there in the chat get to ask me and James any questions. And we have the right of refusal to not answer them, of course. But so start firing off questions in the chat. Meanwhile, I see James has his Coffee and Ham Radios tumbler. I have
Right. I
mine.
got my old school blue one.
And I have the fuchsia pink or the periwinkle pink, whichever we want to go with. And I have to stand up for this one and move the microphone.
I'm rocking the Bro, Do You Even Ready?
There we go. I figured I had you on. I had to rep one of your shirts for sure.
Thanks, buddy.
So while we wait for people to start rolling in with the questions, tell us, as if nobody already knows this, but tell us a little bit about yourself while I bring up your Etsy page.
Sure. My name's James, call sign Kilo Hotel 2 Sierra Romeo, and I am the owner of Quirky QRP Ham Radios, which started out as just a side project to pay for ham radio gear, essentially, with a little idea I had, the keychain QRP transmitter. I'm trying to think. I don't even know if I have one for myself right now. I haven't built a batch in a while, and I think I sold them all off. I don't even have one for myself. But and then I expanded to the Slink Tenna, Zip Tenna, the HOA scanner stealth antenna, and then a whole bunch of truly quirky products that are designed on like mouse pads and
the one that caught my attention
t-shirts
here was this one.
Oh yeah, that was something I was going to bring up today.
Cards.
I made a whole bunch of poker cards. I couldn't sleep the other night, and I'm like, just make something. What can we do?
At least it's not t-shirts, right?
I did make a new t-shirt. I couldn't help myself.
Before or after 12/31? Before or after New Year's?
It was New Year. It was 2025. I already blew my resolution on the first day.
There you go. So Tim, there you go. He blew his resolution already. Let's hear.
Yep.
Is it?
It's this one here? Bro, Do You Even Spark Gap?
Yeah, there it is.
Tim was talking about not doing what our grandpas did in ham radio, right?
Right.
On that, what was that stream the other day?
Ham Radio Kids Table.
Yeah. And I think my response in the chat was, what does that mean we can't do CW? Is CW faux pas? Because that's pretty old school. And it got me thinking, What about Spark Gap? Like, I know you can't legally do Spark Gap because it's the bandwidth is so wide. It's like the entire band.
Well, you could. It just wouldn't be fun. Let's hear.
Do it mobile so they can't catch you.
Bro, can you not even last one day, says Tim.
That's right. I tried, Tim. Couldn't help myself. It's a disease. I'm getting treatment.
One shirt at a time?
One shirt at a time. Yep.
There you go.
I'll cure it one shirt at a time.
So we got our first question in here, and it's for me. Frank, on your Photog channel, how do they make those train sets look so real? Roy, which train sets? Are you talking about, say, the skunk train video that I just posted today, or something else there? Because I have a lot going on.
I think
so. Which train sets? Too. What?
I'm a professional photographer, or at least I was. I retired recently, but
okay.
Tilt shift lens.
So much fun. Yes, absolutely. Actually, this photo here. Let me. I'll take my video out for a second. This photo here was taken January 2024. This, I'm pointing as if I'm still on the screen. This setup right here is a fellow HamTuber setup. Those that know. So let's see here.
Where is that?
Mike says, bro, do you even resolve for 2 days? No, James didn't even last 2 days.
No. I tried for a couple hours. Didn't take.
Okay. So Roy said he's joking about the drone videos. They're great. Thank you. I appreciate that. At least somebody's watching them. Yes, for those that don't know, I have a second YouTube channel. It's Frank's Rails Photography. I'll try and drop a link here in a moment or two, but this is the Q and AMA. So let's get those questions in the chat rolling. If not, I have 6 questions that I can postate. No, that's not the right word. That I can put towards James, and he can answer. And
Frank, please do drop that link, by the way, for the trains. My son loves trains still, and I'd love to show him some of that.
We'll have to talk afterwards, because I will say this. A lot of what I photograph is 18 plus work. So, there's 18 plus work mixed in with the train stuff on both my website and my YouTube and all of that. So, and I'm careful with the YouTube side more so, but there is some stuff that parents, you might want to review it beforehand. So
I'll
there
just
we go.
it, and we can watch the footage of you. You do drone footage of trains?
I do. Amtrak 1007 says best QRP radio. Go. James, you go first while I think about this.
It depends. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to be ultra light, then learn Morse code, because the lightest, smallest QRP transceivers are going to be Morse or CW only. But if you want something really well rounded and the sky's the limit, get a KX3.
There you go.
I have a KX2 personally. I also have an X6100 Xiegu. There's lots of great options out there.
I would say the Xiegu G90. Yeah, the Xiegu G90. If you want to go for phone and CW,
that's a good compromise radio. That's a really good compromise radio, because it's not just 5 to 10 watts. It can do 20 watts, right? I don't have a
20 on external battery.
And that's only 20 watts versus 100 watts is only what, 1 S unit?
Close to that, yeah.
Something like that, 1 to 1.5. So on the receiving end, unless it's a super weak signal, like they're going to hear you whether you're doing 20 watts or 100 watts.
Oh, absolutely. I take my Yaesu FT710 out in the field, and half the time I'll crank it down to about 20, 25 watts, and they still hear me just fine. So there you go. Elecraft, Xiegu, the even smaller rigs. That's what you need to do, Nets. Work with Adam and get a small rig.
Me?
Yeah.
He made that little tiny, it's like a surface mount Pixie kit, right? Did he ever market those?
I
know he made some prototypes, and like some of his friends got one maybe, but I thought that was so cool.
I do know he has a new product for KH1 that's coming out, or is out now. So, and no, John, not prostate, not prostate. We're not on 80 meters yet.
Am I on the wrong ham radio show? Is this the swap prostate exam stories?
No, this isn't Clubhouse or Coffee and Ham radios. That's where you go for those stories.
I love those shows.
Oh, absolutely, they're fun.
So another option, back on the QRP side, if you really do want to end up doing ultralight, but you don't want to, not waste your time isn't the right phrase, but if you don't want to take the time to learn Morse code first, you might consider, and this is not an inexpensive option, but you might consider one of these.
Here, let me solo you.
And let me get a battery. Do I have a battery handy? I had a battery floating around here somewhere. Shoot. It's the Prepcom. This is the MMX. It's a tri-band. CW only. And it's very lightweight. This is an early model. It's got a 3D printed case. I don't know if they're still doing that. They're not cheap. This is like a $400 radio. Okay. But there's a reason it's $400. This is a self-contained CW decoder encoder. And I'm sure some of you have heard about this. These radios have been out for a few years now. I actually went and met the guy up in Idaho who created this, and he showed me his whole setup of how he assembles these things. And you just plug a keyboard into it.
Very cool.
And it is a transceiver, but it also has the neat feature of you can hook it to any radio.
There you go.
So I can hook this to my 100-watt rig and learn Morse code while making QSOs.
That's the way to do it.
If you want to maximize your time and you're really itching to get on the air with CW, it's an expensive option, but it does the job. And it actually his decoding algorithm that he supposedly invented himself, so he tells me, decodes into the noise quite well.
Hey, that's good.
Compared to a lot of the software CW decoders you'll see out there. And then you just type on the keyboard. And the cool thing is you're still hearing the code and you're seeing it decode live on the screen. So you're learning through making contacts live on the air. Instead of, my dad likes to use an app that like reads the news in Morse code to him. And that's pretty cool. Yeah, I forget the name of it now. And those are great options. I mean, people used records, LPs, 45s back in the day to learn Morse code. And it was just the same thing recorded, and they'd listen to it over and over again. And it worked. But if you want something, and I'm not affiliated with this other than the guy was nice and invited me to his house and showed me his setup. And I wrote a review for him. He did give me one, like an early generation that I think I handed off to my dad. But I liked it so much I bought like one or two more of them. So
nice. Tim says he has a video with Eric from Hamcation last year.
Yeah. And it's relatively easy interface once you get the hang of it. Yeah, my dad and I are hoping to get back into code. I learned code when I was like 15, something like that. Actually, I might have learned it before I got my license, oddly enough.
Not bad.
But then high school hit,
of course,
college hit, and yeah, I still brought an HT backpacking and stuff. I was still doing ham radio, but
code just went right out the other way.
So I'd like to learn it again, and this is an interesting option.
Very cool. Cooley, yes, this was Quartz Fest at Quartzsite last year. This was like 9 o'clock at night that I took this photo. Just a simple 30-second exposure, but hey, it works. You can see the stars up there. I'll maximize.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I didn't realize that was a night photo. I love night photography.
Here, I'll just turn my ugly mug off for a second. You guys can still hear me though.
Nice.
That's half the fun. But yeah, so that RV right there, front and center, that's a fellow Ham Tubers RV. Those that know. And I'm not going to expose who it is, but those that know. Let's see here. Matt over at KA2AUB's World says, will you ever have an SSB version of those quirky QRPs?
The keychain QRPs? Oh, that's less than an inch cubed. It's like 0.75, I think, is the skinniest side. I think it might almost be an inch on one other axis, but no, that will not be. Although technically I could probably do AM.
There you go.
I could do AM, but AM at, let's see, man, it's 160 milliwatts, I think. So AM at 160 milliwatts is going to be rough. You can make a Q across the room, maybe.
AM at 25 watts is rough. So
yeah, definitely.
And then Mike over at Traveling Ham says, does Quirky QRP do more for you now than just pay for your ham radio hobby?
Yes, it does. As I think I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the stream, I was a professional photographer for 22 years. I've officially kind of retired, I think. My wife runs the business now. She got big into photography, so I handed the reins over to her. I'm more than willing to step in and help her if she needs a side shooter, but I'm retired from photography, and Quirky QRP is my full-time job now.
There you go.
Yeah.
One of these days, I can get rid of the railroad and hopefully do full-time there. But we'll see.
When you retire, Frank, you gotta ride the rails like a hobo. Just go hop a freight train and see where you end up.
assuming they don't automate everything and make it 10 times harder than it already is for some hobos, sure, yeah, that might
We
be an
just need
idea.
some Mission Impossible hardware so you could just grappling hook over to it, magnets. You'll figure it out.
You know what's funny about it is there's actually a bunch of hobos on YouTube that film their
Hobos on
adventures.
YouTube.
Yeah, they film their adventures with like GoPro cameras and stuff, and then they edit, and they edit meaning they cut out the dead silent parts in the middle of the night, that sort of stuff, and then they edit it together. And 9 out of 10 times they're using Baofangs for radios to listen to what we're talking about on the rails. So
interesting.
Amtrak 1007 asks, Canon or Nikon?
Nikon.
Canon.
But only because I will say, so I was in the business for quite a while, and I've used both because early on I'd work for other people, on occasion, whatever I could get, whatever work I could get. So I've shot on Canon many times. And typically in the professional photography world, people describe Canon and Nikon as in Canon is designed by engineers for photographers, and Nikon is designed by photographers for photographers. So, and I think what people mean by that when they say that, it's nothing to knock on Canon because they have a great design. Nikon just is a little more ergonomically designed as far as the placement of some of the controls. I used to do a lot of sports photography, so quick access to various controls on the upper level models. I'm not talking about the soccer mom models of cameras. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for instance, the last camera I shot on before I retired was a D5, Nikon D5. So top tier stuff. And not just from where a button layout standpoint, but also I just felt the grips were more comfortable for long-term shooting. But other than that, they've always been neck and neck. Like as far as technology goes and performance, that's always been, Canon would take the lead with some technological advancements for a couple of years, and then Nikon would counter that. And it was just kind of a dance back and forth. And the main reason I ended up with Nikon, I very easily could have ended up with Canon, was my uncle, back when I first got my start in photography, I was shooting on film, learning the Ansel Adams zone system, black and white photography, developing my own film, rolling my own rolls of film too. He gave me his old Nikon camera, Nikon 8008S. He gave me two of them, actually, two Nikon bodies and 2 or 3 lenses. So when it was time to upgrade to digital, I had the lenses already, so I went Nikon. And that's really the only reason I ended up with Nikon, I think.
I've tried Nikon. I've had my fair share of film cameras. When I was much younger, and by younger I mean age 6 up to about 15 or 16, I shot strictly film, and I developed my own film. So, and this was in my grandfather before he passed taught me how to shoot, and I learned the rest from there. Yeah, I learned the rest from there, and he had what then became my room in my teenage years, this black room for editing, and that's where I learned. But that's also where I learned that the chemicals cause my migraines.
Oh no!
Yeah,
or ventilation.
No, great ventilation.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, great. Because
that is a common problem.
Because it was just off the garage, and so there was nice ventilation in and out of the garage from there. Yeah, so I stopped doing that and I went to digital. If it were up to me today, I'd have the C80 from Canon. It's the cinema camera.
Nice.
And unfortunately, I'm still shooting with its 3rd generation back predecessor, the 5D Mark III. And Mike's comment just got me. What the hell's going on here? I'm editing a video and y'all's over here doing live stream. Yeah, Mikey.
Tim Grayman Poda is asking. That is why we need to encrypt the fangs.
I'm going to get to that. Let's see here.
Hey, what's the name of the firmware for the UVK5? The EG Zoomer. Throw the EG Zoomer on a UVK5 and turn on the scramble mode.
There you go. But to go back to Canon versus Nikon, there's one key factor you're missing there. Sony. For the longest time, when I first started live streaming, I was using my 5D Mark III as my camera. This right here is a Sony ZV-E10, and what I love about it is it goes from very close up focus to back to me,
Nice.
back,
Yeah.
and this is the
Sony has
camera.
always been a leader, especially in video.
Oh, absolutely.
At least at bare minimum, they've always been an innovator.
Absolutely. And so I've used, this is what I film my videos on. Lots and lots of fun there. Let's hear. Jody, the Canadian Sass, is finally in the chat. Jody, I was wondering if you were going to show up today. How many Bro Series T-shirts has Quirky got up his sleeve for 25?
Man. Actually, I have a note somewhere where back when that first all started and it was kind of a running gag on live streams about making bro shirts, I have a list somewhere of just like an endless list of bro shirt ideas, but I dare not look at it. It needs to cool off. That the bro t-shirt engine has overheated and we're letting it cool down a little bit.
I literally have a list like this long in my notepad of shirts that I want to get from you. I don't even think if they're on your story anymore.
Hey, let me know. I'll just whatever you want. I'll throw one together.
Okay. Well, they're ones you had already done.
Oh, okay. So, are they not available anymore?
I haven't looked. Okay. That's the problem. I got
a couple that
I got the links for them, and then I forgot about it until I was going through my notes at the end of the year trying to clean stuff up. And I went, oh yeah, I forgot about this list. Let's see here. Going back to riding trains, John says parachute on top. John, sorry, I'm not Carlos. I'm not jumping out of perfectly good planes. Actually, I'm not allowed on perfectly good planes, but that's a discussion for another day that maybe in 20 or 30 years we can talk about.
TSA has got your number, huh?
More than TSA, yeah. I zip line to the moving train roof. That would be interesting.
I feel like I saw that in a movie.
James Bond move for sure.
I think that might have been a Marvel movie, Captain America.
Yep. When
Jason, bro, do you even bro? Oh, I actually really like that one. Oh man, I like that one. That's funny.
excuse Quirky's eyes as James goes over to the other screen to quickly type that one out.
Oh man, no, I'm not gonna. No. I can barely keep track of the chat and talk to you at the same time. I don't know how you YouTube streamers must have like separated corneas or something so you can look at two different screens. I cannot multitask like that.
Tonight because I'm doing the Q&A, I'm behind on the chat. I'm back at this comment. Mike says, we're traveling family, Frank, not hobos. Okay, absolutely. And Brian, you're right. R.I.P. Shoestring. He was one of the more prolific hobos, actually. Let's see.
Shoestring, that reminds me. That's actually so was it Coffee and Ham Radios were talking about their cubicle quads?
Yeah.
And I had mentioned on that stream that there was an antenna I had back when I first got my license when I was about 15, was a cubicle quad that I used to talk to the Russian Mir space station. Nice. Unfortunately, I feel so we had like a brief, the conversations are typically brief anyways, because even back then other people would want to try to get in, and the pass is not super long. But I don't think they got my call sign right at the end. Like came back and they like said 73, and I wasn't quite sure I heard them right, but I was like, wait a minute, did they? And I can't remember which letter, if it was the prefix or whatnot. But so I never got a card in the mail.
Oh no!
I know, but the experience was the more valuable thing.
Oh, absolutely. There. So maybe you can help me out with this one here. John wants to know if I can pull up the Quirky Mini Radio.
Oh,
do you still have that on your shop?
It's not available right now. So if you, you'd have to have a direct link to see it, I think. Let me see what I can do on my end. It's either, if you look up Keychain QRP, just a web search. Let me see if I can find something here.
Let's see. Let that load, and I'll keep going down and catch up on the chat here. So Mike just got the first cut of his video done. Oh, QRPclub.org was the first result. If it will load for me. There we go. Oh, no, it doesn't show an actual image.
I'm trying to. There were a few reviews written about it back in the day.
Yeah.
Here's one. Where can I give this link to you?
In the private chat that should be right below my
Got it.
ugly mug here.
Okay, this is way back in 2017. This article. Funny, I have to go find someone else's website to look at my own stuff.
All right, so let me share. Make sure I share the right
And
thing.
after enough interest, if enough people contact me, not necessarily the same person over and over again, but if enough people contact me, I've considered and done a few times additional runs of those, but they're very difficult to build, and not from a complexity of the circuit as much as it's such a small enclosure to put it in, and it just takes a while. It's time consuming. They are lots of fun. And actually designed that was more of a can I do this kind of a personal challenge. And then I think my dad was like, you should sell those. You should like make more of those and sell them. And I was like, sure, why not? Because that was something I wanted to do early on when I got my license when I was 15. I wanted to sell, what are they, the roll-up J-poles.
Right.
When I got my license, we're like, hey, my dad and I saw the design for the roll-up J-pole, and like, hey, we could make those and sell them at the local ham fest up in Idaho. And they were a total failure. Like the SWR something was wrong. Something ain't right. And we built a few for ourselves, and that was it. And that was one of my first attempts at a ham radio business. The other was I wrote some software about the same time, roughly when I was 15, 16, ham radio Palm Pilot software. One of them was called Scan Guide, and it was literally just a Palm Pilot program that had a bunch of frequencies, like frequencies for trains, government, police, fire, back when everything was still mostly analog.
And I do believe you can still find that out there on the interwebs.
It is out there. It is floating around. Actually, I recently realized I could add it to the Internet Archive. So it's now officially on the Internet Archive for anyone to find if they can and take if they want.
That's there. So following up to that, John says since 1,000. No, John, it has to be like 1,000 different people, not just 1,000 different emails. 1,000 different people.
I did clarify that because I have had the same person nag me endlessly, and I'm the kind of person that when that happens, I'm more inclined to not do what they want. So if it's a thing of like they're trying to get me to do something sooner, I will take longer to get around to that. I don't get pushed easily.
And going back to the camera bit, Tim, don't worry. I do film quite a bit with my iPhone as well, but the quality, because this is 1080 and 4K and the iPhone's 1080, you never be able to tell the difference. I export in 1080 anyway, so you really can't tell the difference.
The iPhone is perfectly capable as a camera. This is coming from a professional photographer of 22 years. It's not about the camera. It's about the person holding it.
Exactly. It's not about the gear. It's about the photographer. What you see with your eye. The gear is irrelevant to a degree.
It's just like ham radio. You can anyone that can afford to buy a Flex can buy a Flex, but you got to know how to use it. You got to know how to do the ham radio things. Just because you have a fancy camera or a fancy ham radio doesn't make you the best ham radio operator or the best photographer.
Absolutely. Let's see. John's coming up with more t-shirt ideas for you. My memes are on 14230. Yeah, John, you got to go with a bro in there somewhere.
Is that a slow scan TV frequency?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why it looks familiar.
And then Matt says his newest video will premiere tomorrow morning. Fantastic. I'll have to take a look at it in the morning. Let's see here. I think we're all up to date there. Yeah, I'm up to current with the chat. So guys, come on, fire the questions off. This is the Q&A AMA.
I have an announcement.
Oh yeah.
I have opened up pre-orders again for Slink Tennis. Slink Tennis are available again. I haven't even emailed back the people that contact me when they're out of stock and say, when's it going to be back in stock? Those are usually people I let know first, but I'm letting you guys know first. They are available. So if anyone's interested, they are there. They historically sell out kind of fast, but I will continue making them. I have recently got a hold of some new stockpile of parts, so
nice.
We'll be doing another batch starting within days.
Links in the chat, but go to Etsy and look up Quirky QRP ham radios. That's where you find it. And B. Willen has a good point there. There are YouTubers with 2.5 million subs who shoot video with iPhone 15. Absolutely.
And I took a Kellogg's 110 film camera to Yosemite once.
There you go.
You know, it's free out of a cereal box.
Exactly.
And I used it as a gag. Actually, it's not the only camera I brought with me.
Well, of course.
You know, there are those spots like overlooking the valley,
right?
And there's like 30 photographers lined up, all waiting for that moment.
Oh yeah.
So I rolled up, and I took out, and you know, when a new photographer rolls up, everyone kind of looks. They want to see what gear he has. You know, they're kind of keeping an eye on you, just over their shoulder. So I had this all planned. I rolled up, I take out my multiple camera bags, my big tripod, and I go start setting up. And then I pull out my little Kellogg's 110 film camera and set it on top. Not even, there's no thread. There's no tripod thread. I just set it on top of the big tripod, wind it up, click, and then I packed everything up and I left. I didn't even take out any other camera. And everyone in line was a slack-jawed yokel. It was great. They all were like, did he just?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was great. It was great.
And 45 Auto, yes. Video is secondary to YouTube, to audio, absolutely. But at the same time, if you have horrible video, it's not going to matter if you have the best audio. You can have stage quality audio and absolute crap video, and no one's going to watch it. Absolutely. Let's see here. Matt wants to know, are they made with real slinkies?
They are not. They are not made with real slinkies. I have a special slinky that I use that is smaller than a normal slinky that allows it to be compact. Initially, I designed it. I mean, I built it for myself, like most of my products, other than a lot of the goofy ones, which I do build for myself as well, but it's more like I'm building them for myself because I find it funny. Whether anyone buys the product or not, I do it because I think it's funny, so I do it. But Slinktenna came about because I just wanted something that didn't. I mean, I love doing HF, but a lot of times in life, I don't have a lot of time to set up, right, or be there.
Right.
And it's like the wife doesn't want to hang out that long, and now the kids are fidgety, so I get very limited time, especially in the field now. So that was designed with that in mind because it's only 12 feet fully extended, yet it's considerably more wire, physical length. What I didn't realize was that people were going to really like it for HOA operating. I didn't even imagine that, which I think it's actually better suited for. I still use mine in the field, but there are great antenna systems out there. And if you have the room for it, a long straight wire is the way to go. Doesn't have to be expensive. You don't need a fancy, expensive ball, and you can build everything yourself. It's very inexpensive and easy to have a good antenna setup. Where it gets tricky is when you live in an HOA. And this came about. I've never lived in an HOA, and I understand that sometimes you have to. And from what I've seen online, it seems like a lot of ham radio operators do live in HOAs, and a lot of them started contacting me, and it was either saying, I bought this because I wanted to use it in my HOA, or asking me, do you think this would work well in an HOA? And I really like that interaction with customers, coming up with new ideas for a pre-existing product, like a different way to use it. And now that's, I think most of my customers for Slinktenna are HOA hams. And that makes me feel good about the product because I feel like it's really filling a need of a difficult situation for hams. verticals in apartment complexes don't perform well. There's just so much RF, and verticals are notorious for hearing all of it.
Oh, absolutely.
So being able to put a Slinktenna like on a balcony, or if there's a crawl space. I've even had people, one guy, we had kind of a back and forth exchange. He was kind of feeling out his plans for his Slinktenna, and we came up with the idea of, he modified his the curtains for his backsliding door to his porch, so that the Slinky, or the Slinktenna, was hidden behind the curtains, like one with the curtains, essentially hidden back there. So it would be near a window, near a wall, and his wife wouldn't be upset about an antenna in the house. Another thing about Slinktennas, that I can't remember if I actually posted this online or not. There's been a minor upgrade to Slinktennas. I've changed materials to a much more UV resistant material, so it can spend a lot longer outside. Now, the original ones, let's see, I still have my first prototype, and I actually still use it in the field. And when I first built it, just to test kind of longevity and everything, I left it outside for like 6 months, maybe even more, maybe 9 months. It was basically all the non-raining months in California.
And knowing where you live, it gets hot.
Yeah, so I cooked it outside. It baked in the sun. The PVC did like change tint a little bit, like it got a nice little tan,
right?
But it didn't get super brittle or anything. But I understand that people want stuff that's a little more durable outside in the sun. So the new PVC for Slinktenna, the body of the Slinktenna, is now a UV protected PVC.
Awesome. So 45 Auto says, I have a special Slinky, James 2025. And Jason says, bro, touch my Slinky. B. Willen wants to know, how did you come up with using a Slinky as an antenna?
Just experimentation. So I think the first Slinky antenna I made was a vertical. I was trying to come up with different ways to have more wire. I like to use auto tuners or tuners of any kind in general, mostly because of the potential for the limited amount of time I have to operate. So I wanted faster setups and the ability to switch bands without messing with the antenna physically. Because I've used all kinds of antennas where you have to go out and like move a clip or something to change bands, and it just really eats into my operating time. So that, for me personally, that's a priority. I know other people have more time they can spend operating, so different antennas apply. But just experimenting, I just got various kinds of Slinkies, and I had read about the origins of Slinkies being used as antennas, because I didn't come up with the idea. That's been around since Vietnam, supposedly. Supposedly, the origins of Slinkies as antennas is from Vietnam.
Hank says they've been around for years.
It's a big paraphrase to say this, but it was, I believe I recall reading something about an antenna was broken. They needed something. They asked the guys that were around, hey, who has any wire or anything? And one guy supposedly had a Slinky and said, hey, would this work? And the Slinky antenna was supposedly born in Vietnam. I don't know. I don't know how true that is, or if it had been experimented with previously stateside, but there you go. It was a common toy, so there were a lot of them floating around. I wouldn't be surprised if a ham somewhere long before that story even came out had attempted something like that.
Probably.
Just wasn't documented.
So T here, welcome to chat. I'm looking to put a dipole in my 60-foot attic. Want to work 80 through 10. Are short dipoles worth looking into? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
use as much length as you can.
Yeah.
An off-center fed dipole could be a good option. I don't recommend, with that kind of a space, I don't recommend doing like a G5RV. And which is funny because I'm currently using a G5RV. A $3 G5RV that I found in a surplus shop for sitting in a box. People didn't know what it was, so they put $3 on it, and it still works. But the problem is it requires you to use, it has ladder line. And that does kind of need to be vertical. So unless you have the space below the feed point of the antenna to have that vertical twin lead, I wouldn't do anything that's remotely similar to a G5RV.
T, I will say this to add on to this though. Coming up in February, I'm gonna have a similar thing, CQ Chit Chat, where we're gonna talk about building antennas and what antennas can fit where. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button and pay attention to February because I'm going to be coming out with a live stream for that. So thank you for the question. Very fun one.
Carolina Wyndhams are another great option. And they make or I don't even know if that company still exists, but a Wyndham, whether it's a Carolina Wyndham or not, there's a short version of the Carolina Wyndham. There's like a Carolina Wyndham 40, and you can you can tune it up on 80. It will work. You'll have a little bit of degraded performance, but it might fit your space. With that amount of space, you're going to have limited performance on those top bands that you're talking about. He mentioned 80 meters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, but it's doable. Try it. The best thing you can do is just try something. You know, even if it's starting out with speaker wire, you can buy a fancy antenna if you want, but just speaker wire, the appropriate length of speaker wire, and an appropriate ball in, and whatever kind of antenna. Yeah, there's the Carolina Wyndham.
So I'll drop.
I used one of those for years.
All right, so I dropped that into chat, but there you go. Nice and easy to set up. You know, easy to make too. So catching up here. B. Willen says HOA Ham's whole YouTube channel is based on stealth antennas. Have you worked with him with Slinky yet?
I don't believe so. It's possible. I haven't viewed all of his videos. Maybe you could post his channel in the chat.
I'll send it to you afterwards.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to check.
And Mike says, and I agree, we should have just let all our neighbors have purple polka dot houses. Yes, absolutely. And I agree with Tim on this one. I refuse to live in an HOA. Absolutely. You know, I know it's not for everyone. Some people have to. I absolutely understand that. But if you can avoid it, especially if you're ham. I
agree. Yeah.
Let's see here.
And if you can't avoid it, get creative. I always recommend to HOA hams, try a rain gutter antenna.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a vertical rain gutter, or I like to just tune up the whole darn thing and tie them all together and have one really long, call it a random wire rain gutter, you know, stick a 9-to-1 on the end of it, ground it, maybe have another portion of the way I do it. I have one set up actually right now. So one segment of my gutters is the counterpoise, and then like 75% of my rain gutters is the radiating element.
So what's funny about that, so I have a 10 through 80 infed half wave. To get myself on the 160, I got a jumper wire. It's about 20 feet in length, and scraped off the paint off my gutters on the lower level of the house, connected it to that, and hey, wouldn't you know, it's not 1-to-1, but it's like 1.7-to-1 on 160.
Hey, that's not bad for just clipping to your rain gutter.
Yeah, just 20 feet connector between the infed and the rain gutters, and the rain gutters go across the whole front end of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear. Mike says Slinkies are killing ham radio. James, I think you have a special Slinky just for Mike, right?
I'll tell him where he can put the Slinky.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Let's hear. John says World War II used Slinkies, he thinks. So might even go better older than that.
Oh, cool. Cool. I hadn't heard that before.
Hollywood dropping some knowledge here. He'd like to suggest using a Slinky made from brass, not the steel one sold today.
Yeah. So the biggest downside with that, so I believe an official Slinky is made in possibly brass, but they're not very common, and like the ability to stockpile them, to build them in any kind of quantity, and also the price is a major factor. And they're also larger, so it's less convenient and harder to work with. So one of my first Slinkies I experimented with was Slinky makes what do they call it? It's like the Slinky Ultra or Giant, and it's like a diameter like this. They're huge. And they work, and they work as far as Slinkies go. They are the best performing Slinky, but they're just a nightmare to set up. Slinkies tangle. If anyone's played with Slinkies back in the day,
Oh yeah.
you got to be careful with them. Someone asked something about
Oh, I'm just going through the
a
comments here.
balanced feed line Slinky dipole. So the balanced feed line Slinky dipole is the origins of using Slinkies for antennas. The problem with them, and that's where my design differs. The problem with them is that they move. So the way you tune a balanced feed line Slinky is literally stretching it out. You stretch it out to tune the antenna without using a tuner. You can use a tuner with that, but the SWR is just all over the place. Any little breeze, if it moves, it's all over the place. And that's where a lot of the negative stigma comes from with Slinkies being used as antennas. So I actually use 9-to-1 on mine, which allows me to have a shorter Slinky. It is technically, the antenna is balanced because it is not off-center fed. Both elements of the Slinky are technically the same length. But so it's like, do you call it a dipole? Do you call it an end fed with a counterpoise?
Right.
Like, that's why it's quirky QRP. It's a quirky antenna. But I've had lots of success with it, and if you look at the reviews on the many reviews that I have, people are happy with them, and they're lots of fun. It's certainly not the best antenna. I never say it's the best antenna because it's not. It has a specific purpose, and if you have limitations like people in HOAs, sometimes it's the best you can do. So there's all kinds of antennas that are even better than the Slink antenna for HOA operating. Like if you can get away with dangling, having a top fed vertical, like if let's say you're in the second or third story, dangling it a wire down, that can work great as long as there isn't massive RFI around.
And the neighbors don't notice it.
Right. That's why you got to use really thin wire. You got to get creative with how you dangle it down. So yeah, there's all kinds of Slink antennas is not the end all be all best antenna. It's just a lot of fun, and I made it for myself, and it just so happens that other people like it too.
Absolutely. Apparently, Mike lost his Slink antenna. He has no idea what flight of stairs it climbed down. Mike, considering you're on the first floor, I would be very worried about that. All right, I'm going to pop this one in here. Uh-oh, Grace, am I muted? No, I'm hearing myself coming back. Yeah, no, I hear myself coming back. So I'm not muted, but welcome.
I hear you.
Well, see, I cheat because I've had so many audio issues in the past. I listen to my own live stream with an AirPod in one ear, so I can hear the delay, and I know if I'm muted or not for that reason exactly. Chris says it's all about dangling your Slinky. It depends on where you dangle it. Absolutely. Don't dangle it in the wrong
does your Slinky
spot.
even dangle?
Okay,
so I can't help myself. I'm doing it again.
Right. You don't even need Tim's help. All right, Mike 73. Thanks for dropping by. Of course, I just dropped everything as I moved a window around here.
So the playing cards that you showed earlier that's just tip of the iceberg. Like not quite to the extent of the shirts, but I did make quite a few variants of playing cards. This goes along with, if you recall, I got permission from the guy that does the band conditions chart. I talked to him and he let me use the graphic from his website that he does the band condition reports with, and then I put the bands are dead above it, right? So I made everything red, all the bands are closed. I came up with that back during the what I call the flare apocalypse. That massive flare happened and just the bands were a nightmare. But the playing cards kind of fall in line with that, like it's something to do when the bands are dead or at a ham fest with your buddies. Oh yeah, there's the bands are dead.
Nice sweatshirt too, it looks like.
Yeah. And then the latest insanity is my what I call my fangaflage.
Oh yes, all the fangs.
Camouflage with Baofeng print overlaid on old school camo.
like the necktie, the neck gaiter.
I get the weirdest requests. So I had one guy, and not to knock him, because I mean I hadn't thought of it, but he wanted it, so I made it for him. He wanted a bedspread covered in bale fongs, like a comforter. He's like, hey, can you? And I had nothing on my site that even suggested I made anything remotely related to that. And some guy contacted me one day, and he's like, hey, can you do this on a bedspread? I was like, give me a minute.
Right.
Check my suppliers. I was like, hey, okay, who's got a bedspread out there? And yes. And then he's like, hey, can you also do a picnic blanket? It's like, give me another minute. And I went and looked and found a supplier. And so that's the reason why I have a bale fong bedspread and a bale fong picnic blanket. And then from that came every other bale fong insanity product that I have.
Of course. And Matt says, does your slinky hang low? Does it wobble to and fro? No.
It's been a long day.
And it's poof wing. Yeah. Thank you, Randy, for that.
I know that's the way you're supposed to say it, supposedly, but I can't let go of my old ways.
So I'm gonna drop this one here now. James, this is for you, and chat, feel free to come in if you want to on this one. What's your dream QRP setup for a desert island, assuming the coconuts are not RF friendly?
Do you mean like a off-the-shelf pre-existing radio, or something I would build, or what do you mean?
Something you got to build.
Something I got to build.
Make it quirky QRP that you got to build, and the coconuts don't work. Assuming
there's some wreckage to work with, I would at first start by making, I would try to scrap a Zinnier diode and make a shortwave receiver.
Okay.
And because that's the easiest thing you can do. And then if I can find more stuff to make a radio, then I would try to build one of my keychain QRP transmitters.
There you go.
Because it's a very simple transmitting circuit, and then you could listen on shortwave because if you're a missing person, then it was kind of a big deal making the news lost in the middle of the ocean. You would hope you might hear some news, possibly on some shortwave, and then you would know if your signal has been received. It would be a long shot, but that would be a realistic. I mean, anything beyond that would be like, sure, you're not going to build a radio. But that's what I would do. I think if, let's say it was a ship that crashed or a plane that crashed, I bet I could scrap together some components to build something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jody says, Quirky's Stranded Island Radio, the Wilson 9000.
Yes.
Tim's out here with the fun request. Can you put Fangaflage on a set of boxer shorts?
If you really want them, I can do it. Just
Tim,
let me know.
Contact.
But time is money, so if it's a joke request, I don't know. If it's a joke request that I think has potential, sure, then I could do something. But like in photography, I got out of the adult business as far as photography goes, and I don't plan on getting into it with ham radio.
Right.
Selling dudes underwear was not in the life plan.
Right. The professor built radios, right? Yes, absolutely. 4-5. So guys, any more Q and AMAs? You know, we've happily focused on James quite a bit here, but you know, we're both here. Feel free to ask any questions you might want.
Here's what I build on the desert island.
Let's see. If
I could find the parts. Just a simple, this is it's an FM transmitter kit, but a family friend gave me a junk box.
Oh, nice.
Of just random electronics, and this never built kit was sitting in there, so this is going to be a fun winter project with my kids, I think.
There you go. That's the way to do it. Hollywood wants to know who suddenly hears the theme to Gilligan's Island. Yep. Okay, so apparently Tim really wants those boxer shorts.
Okay.
So there we go.
It can be done.
Okay. James, you like music, right?
When I have time for it, usually on road trips. But yes, I do like music. Why?
Okay, if QRP had a theme song, what genre would it be, and which band would you pick to perform it?
It's tough. I'd have to go with the band would have to be like AC/DC or something. I think, you know,
Solid
something,
choice.
you know, timeless rock, but timeless. I think is the way I would describe it. Is what I would want. Depends on my mood too. Like when I was a photo editor for a newspaper for a long time, and people behind me working on in the rest of the newsroom was just such a nightmare to listen to that I'd be working such long hours that I would listen to. I'm not even a big fan of this genre of music, but I would listen to techno because the repetition and like it would kind of blur the passage of time. So depending on my mood, there's that. But as far as a theme song for a Quirky QRP goes, yeah, I think something that if I could get AC/DC to write me a song, that's the direction I would go. And then I don't think I would try to micromanage the lyrics for them. I would just, kind of give them the gist of what my goals are, and I'm sure they would do just fine making it up for me.
So I see one more question in the chat, but first I want to bring this up. Jody messaged me a mock-up of the DSLR shell that for iPhone photographers to get street cred. So let me bring this up to share.
Okay, this is funny. I actually had an iPhone case back in the day that made it look like a Leica or something.
There's that one, and then there's this one.
Like I had a legit one.
Oh wow!
Is that like AI generated, or is that a product?
It looks pretty realistic. Speaking,
I don't believe anything. I don't believe anything anymore, though.
But knowing Jody, it's probably AI.
Yeah, come back to us when you got something real.
So B. Willen asks, why does the 6 meter band get so little love?
Because it's a fickle lady.
Absolutely. 6 meters is awesome when it's open. I will say that. I will also say, James, I know you live nearby-ish, so you have similar propagation as I do. 6 meter in California really doesn't open much compared to, like, say, the Carolinas or the East Coast or the Midwest.
I'm watching PSK Reporter, and I'm trying to wait for an opening, just keeping it on a separate screen while I'm doing something else. And the East Coast is just exploding, and I'm sitting over here, and there's just a couple little lines on the West Coast doing nothing, making me feel like a schmuck.
So it does get a lot of love. It's just all dependent upon where you live.
It's just not West Coast love.
Yeah.
But maybe that's for the best.
Simon Ham Jazz up there in Vancouver, up in British Columbia, in Victoria, Vancouver area, he says 6 meter does not exist. It is alien. It does not exist. And
maybe 6 meters FM through a repeater.
Maybe. Dave here, the Hillbilly Ham, has it right. There's a reason why it's called the Magic Band.
Yep,
absolutely.
It disappears. I actually just recently was trying to get a few extra QSOs on 6 meters for the what's it called? The 12 Days of QRZ award.
Right.
I was trying to get a clean sweep. You got to get every band 160 through 6, and you have to make a contact on each of those bands on 12 separate days on all the bands. Which doesn't sound like a lot because the bulk of the bands, it's relatively easy. But man, 160 and 6, especially 6.
Man. You and I might be able to work 160 and 6.
Yeah, I think it's
ground wave almost, but yeah, that would be about it.
I did it. I got my final 6 meter QSO. I got the clean sweep on the 12 Days of QRZ.
And that goes until the end of February now.
It does. So anyone who wants to try it, it's a lot of fun. It's not difficult. There's no pressure, which is the kind of thing I like to. I'm not really big into contesting. I'll participate on occasion when it aligns with when I'm able to operate.
Exactly.
Which isn't always. But I like some of these challenges, let's call them, right? It's an award, but it's also really just like, I like contests or challenges like that because it includes those bands that people neglect.
Absolutely. Ed over at Ham Radio John says boxer shorts with the WSJTX waterfall. Trying to catch up here a little bit. John says Stairway to Heaven. And then I'm not even John. No. I'm not even no. Matt says absolutely for ACDC, Hollywood, QRP done dirt cheap.
I like it.
And the Traveling Ham Mike says, what's the QRP equivalent of Hell's Bells? That would be interesting. Jody says photorealistic AI as far as we know. Okay.
It had the look.
Yeah. And I see Chuck in here. Good evening, Chuck. Let's do 6 meter right now. I'm not set up for 6 meter right now, Chuck. Between you, me, and James, we could do 6 meter right now, probably no problem.
If I turn on my power supply for my rig right now, the fan in there is like unbalanced or something, so it's making this god awful noise.
Oh,
so
no.
basically, I used to, if it was one of those communal live streams where there's like 12 people on, I'd fire up the radio, run some FT8 in the background because 90% of the time I'm not the one talking, I'm just hanging out, so I can get away with that. But damn, I gotta fix this fan or something because there's no way I can run my radio during a stream at this point.
Let's see. Mike says neglected bands. James is speaking his language.
Yeah, it's really a shame. And as far as manufacturers go, I feel like Alinco is our last hope.
Absolutely.
But even they have canceled or discontinued most of their, call them quirky rigs that do like 33 centimeters. Unfortunately, do they even have rigs that do 900 and 1200 anymore?
I don't think so.
That's a shame.
Got to go to eBay for those.
And those are the bands that are the biggest. Those bands and up, right, are the biggest at risk because they can handle more bandwidth.
Exactly.
So it's like those are going to get taken away if we don't get on the air, but we can't get on the air unless we have radios that can get on the air.
Well, they're already trying to take 900 from us.
Oh, I know.
So, Chuck,
and we're not primary users on 900. That's the biggest threat is that we're not primaries.
Exactly. So yeah, James and I are both representing Coffee and Ham radios today. Yes, absolutely.
Sir. I haven't started covering this with stickers yet. I have so many other water bottles and tumblers that I've been filling up with stickers.
Right.
I'm keeping this one pure for now.
Let's see. Jason says FT8 killed the radio star. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that reminds me. I've been making those funny like whiskey glasses and stuff that say FT8 drove me to drinking.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I came up with that, I think, over the holidays. And it's pretty funny. There's like shot glasses, whiskey glass, rocks glass, a frosted beer stein, and just a frosted beer cup. But those are fun.
Yeah, right there.
Yep.
I want to know who your hand model is.
Oh, that's me.
Oh, okay.
I just hold it out and snap a picture with my iPhone.
Oh, there you go.
iPhone first gen.
That's the way to do it.
No, that's not me. That's a mock-up.
Oh, I know. Let's see. Before we wrap up here, Mike says, I'm picking up the Quirky Alinco HTs at a VHF club tomorrow to use for the contest on 23 and 33 Sims. It's too bad those aren't in production anymore. Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone write an email, not just Alinco, but like we need more of the name brand companies branching out a little bit. Because frankly, if we lose the bands, they lose the customers.
Exactly. And let's see here.
I wanted to show this off. I won this on Paul's N1 OG.
Oh, yeah.
I won a Explorer backpack.
Nice.
Given away. And I felt bad about it, so I had him give away some of my stuff afterwards.
There you go.
But yeah, so that was fun.
Matt says Weird Al's new hit. Don't dare to be quirky. Chuck, you're going to be calling CQ for a bit. I don't have the radio set up, and James doesn't either. So we'll see. Let's see here. We'll drop it with this one. T-shirt. Hi SWR gets me hot under the collar.
Oh man, hi SWR. I hate it when that happens.
Right.
Oh, like this PrepCom, for instance. This is not a happy camper with high SWR. It is not like Yaesu's or ICOMs or Kenwoods where there's like some protection built in. And that kind of goes for most of the non-name brand radios. especially QRP kit radios, like make sure you have an antenna connected. Or in this case, this is just a little 50 ohm QRP dummy load. And I actually advised, oh man, I keep forgetting his name. What's the name of the guy that makes these?
Eric?
Eric, thank you. I'm horrible with names. I advised Eric to both start including these with the radios to eliminate him having people send him radios back because they blew the finals. But also he later changed the firmware, excuse me, the firmware. So by default, it's in external mode as if it's hooked up to a external radio to give you a chance to hook an antenna up before you accidentally transmit and blow something up.
Hey, there you go.
So that was good.
So guys, thank you for coming out today. Absolutely fantastic. I want all of you to go check out Quirky QRP over on Etsy. I've dropped a link. I've also dropped a link to my YouTube. Feel free to look at it on your own time. It is potentially not safe for kids in some aspects. So, you know, the more recent stuff is okay, but some of the older stuff might not be there, and definitely not on my website. I have a code thanks to James. It's KG6NLW Quirky, if I remember
It's
right.
either that or the other way around. I forget.
It's down in the description of the live stream, so go check that out and use it if you want, and have fun with that. And James, I want to thank you for coming on for the Q and AMA. And with that, wave goodbye to everybody.
73.